Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining this month's Lunch and Learn. We're going to be going over PDA operations. So we can give everybody just one more minute to join, and then Jen, you can go ahead and start us off.
Okay, it looks like gave everybody a minute here, so we're going to go ahead and kick this off. So like Christina said, we're going to be going over PDA operations. My plan today is to show you side by side of the two different flavors right now that are being offered with PDA. So there is the V3 PDA option that we have out there. There's also the new V4 M Suite that is also meant for PDA, Personal Digital Assistant. So I'm going to try to have those side by side just so you can see how it works in both. So I'm going to be pulling up, this is the M-Floor interface, and let me pull up the PDA interface right here. So these are, I kind of blew them up a little bit. These are meant to be on a smaller unit, you know, a hand scanner type idea that you're walking around the store with, or phones. That's kind of the new thing with being able to get like apps on the phone, so that way they can walk around and be able to do what you need to do in the store environment with a smaller unit that is more mobile. So both of these are very similar in operation. They do the same basic functionalities. The main uses will be doing basic item data maintenance, buying, receiving on these DSD, also being able to do inventory count, and there is a small need for also being able to do some purchasing on here, some actually selling of items, sorry, not purchasing. So I'm going to kind of go over like the bigger ones that are being used, and you can see how they work on both different interfaces. So first off, I'm going to log in with two different users, just so that way I don't run into any issues locking myself out. Usually if you log in on the same user, even if they're two different units like this, we'll kick the other one out. So you always want to make sure if you have multiple people using PDAs, they're using different logins, so that way they're not kicking each other off. So as I'm logging into both of them, they both come up to a main menu screen. So right here, you can see a difference already between the two different applications. So on the left-hand side, the PDA option, this is more of a list format. So we have our maintenance tasks at the top for item maintenance, verification maintenance. Then it goes down into your inventory, and then your purchasing, receiving, deliveries. Over here, it's more compartmentalized. So if you want to do item maintenance, you'd be going into products. You're going to go into buying, so purchase orders, receiving doc, DSD, it's under buying, inventory is under inventory, and then like I said, there is a selling element. There is more options over here on the PDA, so if you click more, this will be where you can go into like the sales, order, shipping, line busting. That would be the more selling part. So we're just going to go through them so that way you can see how they work in both. So first I'm going to start with item maintenance. So let's just come over here to M Suite, so we'll just click on products. So now I have some of those options you see on the list. So there's like my verification, if I want to create a new item, if I'm searching for an item, or I want to do like a store scan, and there's some settings that you can configure in here. Over on the PDA, verification, maintenance are right here. The difference between verification and maintenance is that verification, you're verifying the item's information. There's no maintenance being done. So for example, we'll just pull it up in here. So I'm just going to pull up good old 4011 bananas. So you can see I'm getting a lot of information. I'm getting the active price, the retail price, if there's a sale price upcoming, cost, but I can't change anything. I can't modify anything in here because it's just a verification. So I can't actually click on here. Same idea with the M-Floor. So I'll just go ahead and pull up energy drinks over here. Same idea. So you can see over here I have the item, I have the active price, I have all this information. You can scroll up and down. I am zoomed in so that way you can see it. So this could be zoomed out a little bit, but I did zoom in quite a bit, so it's a little easier to read. But from here, there's not any maintenance that you can do. If you're using either one, you can then go into do maintenance. So on the M floor, there's these 3 dots. So you're saying, okay, I verified the item, there's something wrong, I want to change it. So you can click down the 3 dots, what do you need to change? There is limited view screen. So they do compartmentalize these. So if you're going to need to change the price, if you need to change something in the POS table you see is wrong, the cost is wrong, you can go ahead and you can click on them here. I'll just say price, and it brings up the price field. And now I can modify them. They're white. I can now come in here and I can, oh, that's not supposed to be $8.99. It's supposed to be $7.99. Same idea over here with PDA. You can click on modify and it will bring up same type of option. So I can do the pricing. I can do general item maintenance. There is more. So if I need to do cost, shelf location, alternate code, or price level, you can change those. So I'll just click on cost. You can now see that I'm going in, that I can now edit the vendor ID. I can edit the base cost. These are now editable fields. There is also the option, of course, that you can come back all the way to the main menu and you could just go into maintenance. And maintenance brings me to that same screen on the PDA, so that way I'm not going to be verifying information. Just I know I'm doing item maintenance. I'm going to be working on scanning the store and making sure the regular prices are right. And I want to easily be able to change the pricing. You can go ahead and you can click on regular price and be able to do that right here. You can do the same thing once you go into the verification. You can come in here and you can easily just keep scanning items and you're in the pricing and you can keep scanning the next item. Just go bananas, submit the last change because I did make a change, and you can go right to the next item. So it's a little bit more compartmentalized. You go into verification, you go into maintenance, and you stay in maintenance on the M floor. On the PDA side, you can choose verification or choose maintenance to be able to go right into one of those. A big part of maintenance is usually label as well. So if you are in maintenance and you're making changes, you may want to make a label. So that way you can either automatically print it or make a label batch. So there's 2 different ways you can do that. So I'm just going to go in here and we'll just go back into bananas on our, I use bananas a lot. So on the PDA, so if I'm changing it right here, if I want to make a label, I would go down to tasks, and then I have the option to do an instant label or a print label. Instant label will create a label batch in the back that you can then print out sheets. Print label will print the label immediately if you have a little small zebra printer that's attached to the handheld unit. Over here on M floor, you click on the 3 dots. Right there we have generate label and print label. So generate label will add it to the label in the back, label batch in the back. Print label will immediately print it too if you have like a small zebra printer that's configured to work with the handheld. So just so you can see that it is right there. This is meant to be like an overview just so you can see most of the maintenance. I'm not going to go through every single option that you're seeing. That would take all day. So I'm just going to go ahead and move on. So if there's any further questions, let me know. But I'm going to move on to show the next major component, which would be like buying, receiving. So I'm going to go back to our main menu. So you can click on Start, or you can click on the back arrow to get back to the main menu. And we'll go all the way back here. So buying, the next component I wanted to go over. So if I go into buying, I get order, receiving, DSD. On the M floor, over on the PDA, they're just right here. So I have purchasing, receiving, deliveries, which is the same thing. Purchase, orders, receiving, and deliveries is DSD. So you're able to create a purchase order, you're able to receive on the PDA and the M floor, and you're able to create a DSD, which if you're unfamiliar, the DSD is a billing and receiving doc all in one. So that the big part of these is that receiving is when you're adding inventory. So if you make a receiving document or you're making a delivery or DSD document, same idea, just different terminology, they are going to add the inventory. So this is really useful. You have somebody in the back, they have a pallet coming in, they have a truck coming in with a bunch of pallets. You don't want to have a computer sitting there, so this will make it really easy to be able to scan and be able to receive in the items immediately. So I'm going to show you how to create a new receiving document and edit a receiving document, or on one on each. So on the PDA side, they'll go into receiving. If you're opening an existing document, you could click on Open Document. So we're going to create a new document. So it's really simple. You just click on more, you create a new document. You have to always have a vendor ID. All DSD receiving, anything with the purchasing module will always require it to be linked to a vendor. So if you don't know the vendor ID, you can come up here, you can click the little question mark, and it will show you the list of all the vendors, so that way you can easily find one. So we're just going to go ahead and say the Adams brand for an example. As soon as I click on the vendor, it's automatically going to create that receiving document for me. It's not based off a purchase order. I'm creating a brand new receiving doc. My transaction number, it assigned me, the delivery date is today. And now I can easily go in there and add items. So the person can click on add items, and they can just go ahead and start scanning in items. Let me just make sure I have one that's linked to the Adams brand. I have. And, oh, sorry about that. It's 3. That was me misreading my own handwriting. I apologize. So they can scan any item as long as it belongs to that vendor. It'll allow me to go ahead and scan it, and I can say how many cases I'm getting. And then I can go ahead and go to the next one, and then it will bring me right to cases, and I can go ahead and have many cases. It's very simple. Once they're done with everything, they can click on receiving. This will bring them back to that main menu, so they can do a few different options from here. They can obviously go back and add more items. They can suspend the document, so maybe they need to go to lunch. They can suspend it, come back and reopen it later. They can also show a summary of what they've received, so they can see the kind of the overall the purchase, how many cases they're getting in. And there's also, if you click on more, they can go ahead and look at the last line items, look at list all the line items, list any shortages if they had done this based off a purchase order. They can print the document. They can also close the document. So it's up to the individual store what they would like the person back to be able to do. They can easily not have the closed document option. We can lock that down with either profiles or rights. If they wanted to be able to check these before they're closed, they could suspend the document. And then that way somebody in the back can just double check the numbers before they close the document. So it's really up to how you would like it to work. I'm just going to go ahead and close the document for now. As soon as I close the document, I go back to the receiving menu, and I can go ahead and start a new document if I would like. On our M floor, just so we can see how it works a little bit differently, I'm going to go into receiving. As soon as I click on receiving, it's going to show me my open receiving docs. So I have quite a few open receiving docs I have had over a little while here. If I need to create a new one, I can easily click the plus button, and this will give me the list of vendors again, like we were just looking at, but maybe we'll just look at it a different way. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll just go into, I keep picking on Adams brand. So I'm going to go into Adams brand, and this is going to go into an already existing receiving doc. So you can see I have the doc information just like we were looking at when it was arriving, the vendor ID that it's tied to, and here's all the items that they've received. So again, like I said, I did zoom in a little bit so you can see it's a little cut off. It wouldn't look like this normally. It's just I zoomed in so you could read it a little bit better, but that's how much you're receiving, 24 and 12. If you need to click and edit these, the person could tap on them and they can come in here and they can edit how many cases that were received. So, oh, we didn't get 2, we got 3. And now the case quantity is 3. Up here on the 3 dots, this is where you have a lot of those options that I just showed you on the PDA. So we can void the item, refresh the item, if there may be a new cost that was associated with this, so you can easily refresh it. If you need to find something wrong, you're looking at this, you're like, there's something wrong with this item. The cost is wrong, or the description is wrong. You can actually go into product maintenance from here as well. Go ahead and click on product maintenance. You can also run reporting on here. And then down here, some of those more, the ones that I just went over that you could do on the PDA, you can complete. You can suspend the document, you can close the document, you can cancel the document. So maybe somebody went through all of this and somebody had already done this receiving document and it's caught, fortunately, so they can go ahead and cancel the document, or if you're training somebody on receiving, it's a pretty useful function. And again, you can go through this and you can have what you would like to show. If you have somebody back in receiving, you don't want them to be able to cancel the document, you want that to come back to the back office, you can take away the cancel and close documents and that way they cannot do that on the handheld, and that way it'll come back, they can suspend it and somebody in the back can check it before it's closed or canceled. They can also add new items, so maybe they suspended the document, they're coming back to it later, and they're adding new items, you can add new items to the document right here as well. This is the same idea with ordering and receiving and DSP. So with both, in both cases, so if we're looking at both of these, if you are looking at any of these, the purchasing, the receiving, the deliveries, the options are always to create a new document or edit an existing document if it's already been suspended. They will flow the same way. It's just a difference of what are you receiving versus if you're ordering something with the purchase order, just be a slightly different line, but they all operate the same way on both units, really, if you're flowing between any of the three of these, which does make it very easy to be able to use and train on, as if you only have to train once, then just show them the other one. So if the DSP looks really similar, really flows the same way as receiving, makes it really streamlined as you're using these. The next thing that's really used for the PDAs is inventory. So going back to our main menus on both of them, next one is inventory on the M floor. It's slightly different order on the PDA, but it's right here under inventory. And this allows you to be able to have somebody go out with the unit and do any sort of inventory count, inventory inquiry. So if you have somebody doing price changes, they can just scan an item to check to see how many they have on hand, and also do any inventory adjustments. So in both cases, I'm going to click on inventory in both. I go right in there. These pretty similar. The first thing is inquiry, and that will just be, you can scan an item, and it will show you how much you have on hand. So right here, I just scanned in the apples before, so it did remember that. So it's bringing in the apples, like 60 on hand, 5 cases on hand, and then you can go ahead and scan the next item. We'll just use coffee. I tend to sell a lot of coffee, so right now I have a negative inventory. That would be something, maybe I need to fix that. That's clearly not right. So as you're doing an inquiry, they could easily come in and say, that's not right. I should probably do an item count or an inventory adjustment to make sure that that is corrected. With both of these, it's always going to start with a new document. So on the PDA, you would click on New Document, and it's going to bring you to these counts, the count adjustment right here. Over here, it's just going to assume that you're going into count adjustment. Those are the main two inventories. There is some additional ones with both of these, but those are the two we're just going to kind of focus on, because those are the two ones that most people mainly use. So they go out, they do an inventory count. If you do an inventory count, it's going to override the inventory value. So if you have 8 and you go out and do an inventory count of 10, your new count is 10. Adjustment adjusts the inventory number. So if you have 8 on hand for this and you go out and you count 10 more, it will adjust it by 10, negatively or positively. You can choose. And it will add the 10, so you'll have 18. Or subtract the 10, you'll have -2. So that's the difference between the two. So I'm going to just show a count really quick on the PDA, then I'll show an adjustment really quick on MFloor, just to kind of keep it going back and forth. So the count, we're just going to go ahead and open up a new count document. It's going to put the date in for today. That's fine. The person can just accept that, hit enter, and then they can go ahead and start scanning their items and counting them. So they can go ahead and count 2, PLU2, and they says it right now it's going to automatically pre-fill in with how many units it says that you have right now. So it says 60 units, but I'm counting 40. That is a -20 variance, so my old count is 60, my new count is 40. Then you go to the next item, so they would just scan the next item. It's negative, it's not going to bring that count in. So you can go ahead and just say what the new count is. So I count 50 of these on hand. And it's going to be a 50, and then it should be bringing us to a new count of 50. I think that's just showing incorrectly. And then you can just keep going, and they can keep going and adding this, adding more on here. Now, these counts are not going to take effect until they close the document. So they would come into, they're done, they finish scanning all the items, they can go into inventory. IND. It'll bring us back to this inventory menu. So we're still in the document. I'm still in that count document with today's date. I can suspend it. That means I can check it in the back. I can click on more, and I can close the document here. So then that will be when the counts take effect, and it will update the counts in the back. Again, this can be configurable. You can set up a access right and to be able to allow the people using this by their operator number, by their operator level, to be able to have access to close. We have a variety where some people don't want them to close the document on the handheld. They want it to go to the back, so we can do that. And some people are okay with certain levels. They trust their accounts, so they will go ahead and allow them to close the document. I always would say that best practice is having somebody else double check. The reason I say that is because it's really easy to scan an item and then scan another item into the count. So as you're going through and scanning an item, you can easily scan the UPC into the count, which really makes like $1 million count for the item. Usually best practice to have somebody else double check it, but of course that's up to you. Go ahead and suspend that for now. So for the adjustment, this will adjust the number. So if I go into adjustment, I'm going to go back over to MFLR just so you can see how it looks in MFLR. We'll go into inventory adjustment. It's going to automatically show me any open ones, so I can reopen an old adjustment document, or I can add a new one. I can just hit the plus button. It's very similar to what we just saw with the flow on PDA. It's going to always come up with that date for the document, so I'm going to go ahead and create. And then you can see right here, it's got my doc number, my inventory date, the store number, my operator number and name. And then you can go ahead and we can start adding items. We can go ahead and start adding items. Hit that plus button and go ahead and scan that in. Item found okay. Right now, let's not do the negative one. Let's do our positive, just to make it make a little bit more sense. So our positive, so our old count was 60, a new count was 60. I didn't close that document. I suspended it. So I need to adjust this by 10. So by default, you can see right here, my old count is 60. I did an adjustment of 10, so my new count is 70. If you need to do a different kind of negative or positive adjustment, you can come down here. Oops, sorry, I went ahead of myself. And take your reason code to be a negative or a positive adjustment. So you have and these are default what's in there, which is like adjustment negative wasted, adjustment positive splits. There's also the ability to add additional. So if you have like back office damage, back office trade outs, transfers, warehouse receiving, any additional ones that you would like to add in here for positive and negative, you can add them to get as detailed as you would like on these. I usually suggest that you are very specific with these, that you know if it's a negative or a positive. It's up to like what you need, like retail damage, store to transfer. So it would be, we would come up with this list together. Default out of the box, it's usually adjustment, negative, expire, or wasted, and split. So the two that are usually there by default, but we can add as many as you would like. And again, though, same idea as when you're doing the inventory count. You can come over here once you're done. You can close the document. You can suspend the document. So that way, if you need to suspend it, come back and do more adjustments later. You can do that. If you're done, you can close the document. You can also cancel the document. I am logged in with all rights right now, so I have the ability to do pretty much everything. So that's how come you see them. But again, we can limit these to what you would like to see. Go ahead and close this document just so you can see the confirmation that you get if you close a document on MFLR. So you can confirm, close the document, yes, and now that will take effect. The last thing kind of to go over with the PDAs, that's kind of a major component, is selling. This isn't used as often with the selling abilities. You can't really take payment on the handhelds or anything like that, so it's not used very often, but it is there. So we'll just touch on that. So let me go back to the main menu. We'll go into more, and let me go into selling. So you can see right there, there's the sale order, the shipping, and the invoice. So right there, the sales order, the shipping, right, and the invoice. So if you need to create like a sales order for a customer that they're going to pay on later, this would be where you can go. One additional functionality right now that's here on the PDA is line busting. So that's if you are trying to help with lines at the store so you can have somebody pre-scan the items. You cannot pay, but they could walk up to the customer and they have a cart, they can go through and they can scan all the items and suspend the order, so that way when they get up to the front end, they could just pay and leave, and it saves the cashier from having to scan all the items, and it helps move the line more quickly because they could go through and they can do that for several customers, and that's why it's called line busting, to help bust the line, we'll say. That is available on the PDA. So I'm just going to show that. That's usually something that this is probably the most used thing I see out of the selling module. So you just come in here, you would just create a new document. It'll give you you'd want to have the customer, usually a frequent shopper customer, to be able to pull it up. If you don't have a frequent shopper program, we would just create like a line busting customer that you could add in there, and then you just add the items and start scanning them. So you just would scan the item. They have 2 of these. They can scan the next item, and they have 3 apples, and then coffee. They have 5 coffees. Go to sale right here, and it's a backup because it's a suspended order. There is some additional functionality that you can do inside here. So maybe you need to add like an open ring department. Again, the frequent shopper. It just helps with the shopper to be able, for the cashier to be able to find the order. It just makes it a little bit easier. You can also refund. You can also cancel the sale in case maybe it's just, there's too many items. There's a whole bunch of weighable items in this cart, and it's just too much for you to be able to do with the handheld, so you can go ahead and cancel it and go to the next one. You can put the weighable items to the side, and the cashier can weigh them when they get up there. That is always an option, but then you're relying on the customer to give it to the cashier. So that's catch-22 on how many you want to be able to set to the side that you're going to rely on the customer to get to the cashier to weigh. So there is some additional options here. So, oops, I logged all the way out. Since that's one additional functionality available on PDA, I do want to show you an additional functionality that's available right now with M Suite. So I skipped over it at the beginning. Come back to now, so dimensions. This isn't really available too well on the PDA, so the dimensions gives you the ability to run some reports right on the PDA. They're basic reports, so it's not a full suite of reports that are available. But if you want to come in, you can come in. We'll just do sub-department. You can look at the list of sub-departments, but you can also run a sub-department single total and multi-total. So you can go click on single total. This should look pretty similar if you're used to running these reports in the back. You can pick your date range, select a certain sub-department if you would like, anything, show only sub-departments with no movement, execute the report, and this is, you can see I did a few sales. Again, I did zoom in quite a bit. It's more for the it's kind of side to the side, but just zoom out. Let's hair there just so you can see it all on one screen. So you can get that kind of list here. This could be useful if you are having somebody out there, they're maybe making a purchase order. They want to run some reports before to see how well the items are selling before they go ahead and order a whole bunch more. And it could just be informational, so that way maybe a manager walking around the floor could just pull up to see how the store's doing today, how the sub-department sales are doing, or department sales. I'm using that. Vendors, you have a vendor coming in the back door. They're like, hey, how have my sales been the last week or so? And they don't have a workstation, so they could go ahead and easily run like a vendor single total, multi-total, be able to see how many items that they've sold. It's not going to break it down perfectly, but it will at least give an idea without having to go to a machine. The last thing I did want to show before we take questions is there is some configurables that you can look at when you are on the handheld itself. There is more in the back office, but we're going to focus on what's on the handhelds themselves, the PDAs themselves. So with M Suite, up here we have the little person in the corner. There is the ability to tap on this, and you can get some information. You can see what your ID is that's logged in, my level, the date, the store number, the terminal number, all that, and then there's settings. So these are some overall settings. So you can adjust your lookup order. You can see how many number of rows you would like to go on here if you need to strip the check digit, anything like that. You can check that here. There is the lookup order. This is one of the more used ones, is if you're scanning an item and you want it to look it up in a certain order. So generally speaking, it's UPC only by default. So you scan an item, it's going to see if it's a UPC number. You can configure it to look for UPC and alternate code, and UPC, alternate code, and vendor, and any combination of the two. So if you have all of your tags or vendor codes, you can switch this to be vendor only, and you can scan the tags and it will only read it in as the vendor code. You can also do all three, so check to see if it's a UPC. If it's not a UPC, check to see if it's an alternate code. If it's not an alternate code, check to see if it's a vendor. Like I said, any combination of the three. And then you just need to save. Save successfully, and it's saved to the default profile. There is some additional configurations when you're going through some of the other ones. The main one I'm just going to go through really quick is right here with items. You can go into settings, and these are the remove for sale, prompt to create, mark as verified. Skipped over this at the beginning to come back to it. So if you're creating a new item with either of these units, you might want to make sure that the prompt to create is on, so that way it will prompt you to create the item. On the PDA, you can go here, you go under more, and we can go into configurations in the password. And here's what we were just looking at, kind of a combination of the two basic settings that we were just looking at. It's kind of one spot. So there's that search order, that one UPC, 2 alt, 3 ven. So you can do the same thing, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, whatever combination you would like to have up there for how it will search up the item. And then the remove not for sale. So if you don't want to see items that are flagged not for sale, if you want mark as verified after you store scan the items, prompt to create. On the PDA, you must have the prompt to create on to be able to create new items. The M floor, you can go into new items. So I'll just show you how you do it in both of them. So we're going to go back. So if I go into maintenance, and we'll just go into regular price, and I scan a code that does not exist, see that create item, I can create the item. That will not be there if there's not a prompt to create. If I am looking at items on the M floor, you would go into products, and I want to create a new item. Just click on new. And then I would just put in my code, item not found, create a new item. Yes, that's that prompt to create again, and it will go ahead and let me fill in the pertinent information that I need to fill in. So that's the ability, again, that you can decide if you would like to have the people who are running with the PDAs have. They want to be able to create a new item on the fly, or you don't want to have them create a new item on the fly. You might want to turn that off or lock it down. So it's just, like I said, those are some of the basic settings. There is a lot more settings and profile settings in the back, but we did just want to kind of give an overview of what's available just on the PDAs and the M floor units themselves. So we're just going to go ahead and cover that. We could do another deep dive into some of the more settings on a different webinar. That was what I wanted to go over. Christina, did any questions come in?
Yes, we have a couple of them. So the first one, during the receiving process, is it possible for it to populate a report that shows the UPCs and quantities that might have come in is not on file for further research for the DSD and shipping?
So if you're scanning an item that's not on file, it's going to force you to, if you're doing this manually with the PDAs, it's going to force you to add the item, but you want to see if there's a report that would show the items that were added at the time. So brand new items that were added with the receiving, there's not one currently available. That could be something that that could be run in the back after it's closed. We could create a report that could be run that shows any new items that were created during the process. But it will force you, when you scan it, it will say it's not on file and you either need to create it right then and there, or it won't let you add it to the receiving document.
Okay. The next one, what happens if you are adding a new item to inventory on the receiving end?
If you're adding a new item at the when you're receiving it in, as long as you're going through the process you scan the item and receiving, it says item not found, suspend the document, go and create the item. So you would just come in here, create the item with the cost record tied to that vendor. Then you can go back to the receiving document. So you would just be able to, once you create the item, you can save it here, go back into receiving, and go back into that suspended document, and you can add it in there. That item will show up. As soon as you close the document, it'll show up with the inventory that you've received it as.
Okay. Next question is, how do you bring up line busting at the register?
We would add it's a suspended order. So you would have a backup, and you would have a button that would bring up all the suspended orders. The cashier could just tap that and it will show up in a list. That's how come I said it's a little bit easier if you do have a frequent shopper program that you put the customer in, so that way you can find it easily. Or you can also create a line busting, like just call it line busting. So it would just show line busting, and it will come up with that customer frequent shopper, even if it's not really a frequent shopper. So it will show line busting, so they know it's one of those orders, and they would need to know their transaction number. There is the ability, you can have a printer that is tied to the handheld that could print out like the number for them. It doesn't scan, but it would print out their transaction number, so that way when they get up to the front, the cashier could hit the button and just look up that number and hit the number. It's usually only a couple per register, so it doesn't usually show a huge list, but the best way to do it is usually with that frequent shopper. And again, if you're not running the frequent shopper program, that's absolutely fine. I would just create a customer that says line busting, so it's very easy and obvious to the cashier that they're pulling up when they hit that restore order. They'll pull up the list and they'll show just the line busting one, so they know it's one of those.
Perfect. All right, and then the last question that came in, can you open M Suite on a handheld?
Depends on what type of handheld, but you do need the module for M Suite. But it works on, it depends on what model that you're using right now for the PDA handheld. But yeah, it's openable, but you do need to have it installed and installed in with the modules with it.
Okay, so that can be one. It says Data Logic Memoir 11 is what they have.
Off the top of my head, I believe it works on that, yes. I will double check that. Christine, if you can write down the name, I'll double check that. But I'm pretty sure that, yes, it works on that model. It's the older models, like the Data Logic Falcons and Scorpios, it doesn't tend to work on, because you need the web browser on it. But I will double check that, and we will let you know. I'm 85% sure it works on that unit. So I will double check that.
Sounds good. That one did come in as anonymous, so the person that put that in, if you want to just shoot us an email, just let us know that you're the one asking, or write your message or your name in the Q&A so I can see it, and then we'll be able to get you an answer. Oh, perfect. I got it.
Okay.
All right. Perfect. So that was the last one that came in. I don't believe, I'll give it another second and see if we have any other questions. but if not, it doesn't look like we're having anybody else come in with anything. So thank you guys for joining us for this one. We will get that Memoir 11 question answered and back out to you. For anybody else, our next webinar is going to be on June 25th, and we're going over restrictions on items. Okay, sorry, we just had one more question come in. Can you see all of the pricing on a regular handheld? Meaning regular and sales price.
I made it myself while you were talking. You can see in the verifications, you can see it all here. So you can see the active price, regular price, TPR price, sale price when you're doing the verification. When you go in to change it, no. So when you come in here, right here, you have all the pricing, active, regular, TPR, sale, and in-store pricing. If you want to modify it, then you do need to pick the specific one. So like I go into sale price, it'll just show me the sale price. But so yes, you can view it, but you can't modify them all at once.
Perfect. Okay, so that was the last question we have there. Like I was saying, June 24th is going to be our next webinar. That's going to be on restriction on items. So please join us then. And until then, if anybody has any other follow-up questions or anything else, feel free to reach out to our support team. Everybody have a good day.